Good afternoon and welcome back to Asgard and welcome to part 2 of our mod showcase on the Roots mod. So, of course, last episode we talked about the rituals and the spell casting and everything, and I'm going to assume that you've already seen part 2 as we move forward. Now, this episode we're going to be talking about sprites, which, if you recall, is pretty much the entire second, or the last tab of our runic altar, or our runic tablet. So anyway, moving through with sprites, it's kind of like a working up process. Initially, you're only going to be able to summon lesser sprites. Now, if you look in here, they're going to require 4 different flowers as incense. You're also going to need an ender pearl, redstone, and glowstone. And by the way, a good way to tell what is an acceptable flower is to look on the spellcraft tab. Everything you see here, all these little thumbnails, are acceptable flowers that can be used whenever you are using flowers as incense and stuff. So, or at least from my personal experience, that's one way that you can tell. So we're going to put our redstone, our glowstone, our ender pearl on here. We'll put in our flowers and light these, and then of course shift right click. And it's going to do a little ritual here. And there we go. So all this smoke's coming together, and you'll notice that it spawns a lesser sprite. And that one's going to kind of hang out. Now, if he gets near these spirit fonts, which we'll cover that later, he's going to hang out with those. If you notice, he just got hit by one, and now he's going up there to join the horde of other sprites that we have. Now, just to make it easier, I did capture some of these in soul vials. They do work with this. You can make spawners if you so desired. And so on with those. But if you go over here and let's kill one of these. So we're going to slay it, and you'll notice it kind of takes off. And its main way to attack you is it's going to do that burst attack, or that burst charge towards you, and knock you back and do a little bit of damage. But they have a chance of dropping these otherworld leaves. Now, this is what you're going to need to move forward. Now, you can also get these leaves just by letting them kind of hang out, and you'll notice that they just naturally drop these leaves all over the place. So that's the ideal way to do it, is to set this up for basically domesticating these sprites and keeping them as pets. Because then, of course, you put vacuum hoppers down here and just have yourself a constant super supply of those leaves. Let me set this back to day. However, to make the spirit font, you're going to notice that you need an otherworld leaf in order to do that before you can actually begin messing with that. So, before I move forward with the sprites, actually we'll go ahead and cover the other 2 sprites. Basically, there is a common one, and this one requires 6 different flowers as incense, and it's also going to require a lesser sprite around the altar. So you can always just have a sprite. You could capture it in a soul vial and throw it down right before you did the ritual or something. But keep in mind that these are going to wander off and kind of do their own thing if you don't have a spirit font set up. And you will need... I noticed like out here, it wouldn't recognize the lesser sprites. They need to be somewhere around inside of this. Now, Y level, they can go up pretty high and still be recognized. These up here are still recognized by the altar. But they can't go, I noticed, like too far out in order to be recognized. And then the last one is the greater sprite. These are for the standard sprites. This one requires 2 lesser sprites as well as 1 common sprite, and then 8 flowers as incense. And you'll notice these, that's a common, there's a greater. They have like almost like a mini boss HP bar, and they're quite a bit bigger than the others. Now, these greater ones, for example, you notice the lesser one just dropped a few otherworldly leaves. If we summon a greater, you'll notice they take quite a few more hits, and they're super fast whenever they take off. Luckily, they don't do that all the time. And... there we go. You'll notice I got quite a few more otherworld leaves, and I got some runestone as well. And this, of course, is a variable. You can get more runestone. You can also get more or less otherworld leaves. Now, next up, let's talk about spirit fonts. Now, the way these work is based on the amount of plant life and water that's around them, they're going to have so much magical energy. Now, there's no way to really tell how much energy that they have just by looking at them, but every time that they released a burst into the sky, basically they're transferring magical energy to these sprites, which causes the sprites to actually want to stay here and remain in the area and everything and not wander off. And you'll notice, by the way, that the ones that turn dark green like this, that means they're pretty much stuck with this font. They're going to stick around it, and eventually, see, they'll turn kind of like a lighter color, which means they'll kind of start wandering away until they get a burst. And I've noticed that they'll be like re-domesticated per se. Actually, before the blast hits them, pretty much the moment that the spirit font says, okay, I'm going to shoot this one, that's when they're like, okay, we're going to come back and get that energy. So, let's quickly talk about the spirit font. Okay, so the spirit font, and there's also the spirit conduit, which we're also going to talk about. The spirit font is going to entice any sprites in the area over to it. Now, you'll notice if I just throw down the spirit font, and say I throw down like a common sprite right here, you know, this is just kind of hanging out and it's not being enticed by the spirit font. That's because there's no plant life, no water. Granted, there is some of these random things, plants, but it doesn't recognize those. It's pretty much these vanilla type plants. Water, lily pads, stuff like that is going to entice your sprites and provide energy to your spirit fonts. So once you have all this stuff thrown down, basically this is like a fairly decent setup, and I do like having my sprites over near the altar, because then if I want to summon additional sprites or the boss that we're going to talk about in a second, I've already got the sprites on hand, and plus I think they look really, really cool over the altar. And of course with lily pads down here, you're just going to be able to walk right over this. And you would also want this if you had, say, an Otherworld leaf farm with a vacuum chest down there. These spirit fonts don't actually have to be near an altar. They can be, you know, right out here. We could throw down a spirit font, and then if we wanted to, if we wanted a really, really simple sprite setup, we could just surround this with water, and it's going to still keep sprites in the area. So now if we throw down, say, a couple of these, go ahead and make it day here, you'll notice that it's already enticing them over and saying, hey, why don't you hang out near the spirit font? So you don't necessarily have to have a ton of stuff. You don't have to have it right on the altar, but that's how to keep them. And as long as you keep them, they're just going to keep dropping leaves periodically. You'll notice that these actually, I get about, with this setup, I get about 8 to 10 leaves every couple minutes. So it's enough to keep you, definitely keep you running with the mod and everything. And by the way, summoning the common sprites does require an Otherworld leaf, so you're going to have to do the lessers before you can do the commons. And you're going to need a fully upgraded altar for any of these, by the way. And then the greater sprite is going to require Otherworld leaf, blaze powder, and ender pearl. Alright, and the next thing is we also have these spirit conduits. Now these can be placed down, and basically they're going to emit a signal and call the sprites over to their location. So if we get rid of, say, this, and just have the spirit conduit, it's going to release a burst every so often. It may take it a second. They don't work, honestly, I don't use these all that much, personally, just because moving them with vials and stuff is way easier. But basically, if we wanted to, we could call the spirits over. First, it's going to call it to there, then we'll say call it to here. And what we can do is we can actually give this a redstone signal. It's going to shut it off and make it stop working. So now this one's going to call it over. Now these don't provide any energy, so they're not going to be able to keep. You'll notice it's pulling sprites from over here in this farm as well now. So basically you can move your sprites down, say from here over to here if I wanted to, using these spirit conduits. So of course, now it's just making a big mess because the sprites are like, hey, we're going to go play over here. But once again, these do not provide any energy like the spirit fonts do, so you can't just leave your sprites with these and expect them to stay, because they're going to eventually just wander off due to running out of energy and going elsewhere to look for it. But once again, like I said, it's easier just to move them with something like a soul vial, in my experience. So anyway, that covers the sprites and how to use them. Now next up we have a couple things that we can craft here. First up is the projectile staff. Now this one, I'm not going to, basically the way that you infuse it is the same way that we infused the crystal staff over here. But anyway, what makes these projectile staves really, really nice is instead of just launching like energy, you notice like before that one only went like a couple blocks range and it started to fall. This actually shoots as a projectile, like long range. So we could kind of shoot out there and you'll notice that I just shot him. And these do go pretty much infinite distance. So basically it's going to shoot at the enemy and then whenever it hits, it's going to initiate its effect. So, this one, for example, once it gets there, it's going to blast him with, say, like 4 blasts of cold. And this one, once again, you can change the spell with shift right click, and it can hold up to 4 different spell types. Then you also have the Spellweaver Lance. Now, this one is really cool as well. This one can only hold 2 different spells, but what it does is it provides the effect whenever you melee. So every time I melee with this, it's going to do a decent amount of damage. It's about on par with iron. And then it's also going to give them the blistering cold effect as well. And this is just a tier 1 blistering cold. And you can also spam this. So of course in 1.10, spamming is not the way to go. But you're still going to get the full spell effect whenever you spam. It's just going to keep applying it. So it is very, very nice. Now next up, we have the Conserving Amulet. So the way this works is whenever if you have this in your inventory, oops, and let's say I go over here and I start casting spells. Alright, eventually it's going to start glowing like this. After about 8 spells or something, it's going to start glowing, and basically what's going to happen is the next time that I attack, it's going to do bonus damage and remove the glow on that. So it's basically something that you can just kind of hold on you. These sprites are going everywhere because they're pissed at me. That's how they attack, by the way. They're going to do that, like, rush thing at you. And push you around and do a bit of damage and everything. Oh my gosh, this rain. So, next up we have the Discharge Amulet. Now this one is crafted just like this. All these are with rituals and everything. And basically what's going to happen is after you take enough damage, which is kind of hard to show it, and let me call one of these down here so it'll start hitting me. Come on. Alright. Well, you saw it glow. It's hard to tell with the effect. Or it's hard to tell on those guys. But basically, after you take so much damage, it's going to start glowing for a split second and then release a discharge, and all mobs around you are going to take a significant amount of damage as well. So it's just very, very nice to have it on hand because it is kind of a damage boost. And then lastly, we have this Pursuit Talisman. Actually, let's do it with creepers. Might be a little bit easier to show you than with these guys. Plus, I feel kind of bad killing these things just because I've got them as pets. Let's set it to normal here. Let's say we kill ourselves. You'll notice that a projectile just came out and hit that creeper for 2 damage. Basically what happens is, as this thing, anytime this is on you, whenever you kill a creature, it's going to release a projectile that's going to seek out a similar type creature. So basically what that means is, if you kill a hostile creature, it's going to seek out a hostile creature, and if you kill a passive creature, it's going to seek out another passive creature to hit with that projectile. And I'm assuming it would work the same with players as well, but I haven't personally tested that. So anyway, moving on. Next up we have these components. Now these are dropped by the boss within the mod. So let's go ahead, let's actually summon the boss, and you'll notice here Guardian of Sprites. This is very expensive. It requires 12 different unique flowers as incense. It also has to have 4 lesser sprites, 2 commons, and 2 graders around it. So I do believe we've got everything up there in that hubjub of sprites. So now we just have to add in the flowers. So let me... Alright, and then we're also going to want another world leaf, a diamond. These things are mad at me and they just keep coming after me. And then a gas tier in here. And let's go ahead and light up all of our incenses. By the way, I think this is a really, really cool boss, personally. Shift right click and it's going to start with the ritual. And this super cloud of smoke is going to come out. And here we go, the Guardian of Sprites. Now this thing is very, very, very stout. You'll notice he's just going. So, there we go. He has 320 HP. And of course, hitting him with the diamond sword, it's taking a while to damage this guy. And if I go into game mode S, it's probably going to kill me, realistically. Actually, let's go to game mode C and let's get armor first. I should probably do that, right? We'll just get just standard diamond armor. Now it's locked on to me because... Got that. I forgot I had the Sylvan stuff on, but we'll use diamond as an example. And before I do that, let me switch it to day here. And here we go. So, come back here. Got all these like sprites just running around. I want this thing to actually hit me. And here we go. Pow! It's almost like half my health. So much damages. So yeah, you'll notice fairly quickly that it does quite a bit of damage. So you will want to, if you're going to fight that without like modded stuff, of course if you're using like Draconic Evolution or something like that, that is going to make it a bit easier. But if not, you will want to use a bit of your spells and stuff that are added within the mod, because it does do quite a bit of damage. He did despawn. So anyway, but whenever you kill them, you can get those components, as well as you'll get some otherworldly leaves and little things like that. So these components, basically the way these are used is whenever you do your imbuing ritual or you do anything with the imbuer, instead of using like a petal powder, you can actually just throw in that component and it's going to make a staff for you, and it won't use any of the base spell casting components like petals and stuff like that that we use. You just throw these in there and you're set. Now you can still use your potency, efficiency, size, that kind of thing if you so desire. But there's 4 different ones. There's a Charm of Illusion, Evocation, Restoration, and Conjuration. Now Illusion, so if we got some zombies here, we can hit it with Illusion, cast Illusion, and mobs aren't going to attack us for 10 seconds because we're going to be invisible to them. And then after the 10 seconds are up, they're coming after us again, cast that again, and they stop. Alright, and this Evocation Staff, if we just cast this, it's not wanting to pick them up for some reason. Basically, it's going to create a homing projectile. There we go, just hit that one. That's going to randomly attack one target in the area. Yeah, that one actually just went after that sprite. Wonderful. So basically, that's what that one does. Next up, you have Restoration. Now this one, if you cast this, you'll notice that we get Resistance 3. Basically, this is going to, it's kind of like a last-ditch effort. It makes all mobs around you get repulsed, removes any potion effects that you have, and gives you Resistance 3 for about 4 seconds. So for example, if we have all these zombies around us, cast it, you'll notice it sends them all flying away. So that's what that one does. And then lastly, we have one of my favorites, which is Conjuration. So basically this one, if you charge it up and you cast it, it's going to make an invisible wall in front of you here that mobs aren't going to be able to get through until it despawns. And it will slowly start to despawn. You'll notice the blocks are breaking off every so often. It's not a fixed rate that they break. It's just every so often that one's going to break apart. So you'll notice it's, there we go, another one just went away. And actually this one was cast first and it just now lost its first one. So sometimes you'll get lucky and they'll last for a while. So anyway, moving on, we have a couple more talismans here. We have the Hunger Talisman, which basically what this one's going to do is anytime that you have like an explosion or something near you, it's going to absorb that explosion. And then it's going to go on to a 10-second cooldown. And I believe it takes in fire too. Yeah, any kind of fiery or explosive based attack, it's going to absorb that. So if we stand here and let a creeper blow up, pow, we didn't take any damage. And now this thing's glowing, and after 10 seconds it'll stop glowing. There we go. And now it can absorb another attack. So very, very handy, honestly, to carry with you. Now you are still going to get structural damage and stuff from the creeper explosion, but it's going to protect you as well as things like gas. I swear, all this rain. So next up we have the Ancient Hourglass. Now the way that this one works is if we were to die, let's grab ourselves like a stack of these creeper eggs, go into survival mode. Cool. Pow. Alright. Blow up. Pow. Oh, whoops. It did it and I didn't notice it. So anyway, you guys probably caught it. I didn't catch it in time. But whenever the creeper killed me for the first time, it shattered the hourglass. And what it does is it gives you back a half heart of health, and it's going to freeze time for any mobs around you for a short time. I think it's about 10 seconds. Whoops. Yeah, for about 10 seconds. So anyway, that's how that works. Then the last thing that we have here is the Pixie Stone. Now this one is really, really cool as well. And by the way, all of these are craftable. You are going to need some of this Otherworld Essence, which is dropped by the boss as well. That's why these can't be crafted until after you've killed the boss, because you do need that essence. So anyway, the way the Pixie Stone works is if we just right-click this while holding it, it's going to activate it. And this one can stay activated all the time if you want to. It's basically just a turn-on, turn-off thing because you may not always want this. And so if we just free fall, you'll notice that we slowly, we get like this burst that kind of boosts us up, and it's basically going to prevent any kind of falling damage. So, and then you can just turn this off if it's bothering you. Say you use flight and you don't want it on anymore all the time, you can do that and shut it off. And it's going to let you fall just like normal. And the last thing that we have to cover here are these Otherworld blocks. Now these do require Otherworld Essence and the leaves to get 8 of those, and they can be crafted into bricks and blocks. Like these are like your standard blocks, and they can be crafted up into bricks. They can also be made into slabs and stairs and all that good stuff. And if we grab, say, a few of these, we set it to say night, you'll notice that these glow, and they do kind of release like a particle effect. So they look really, really cool. Plus they're slightly translucent. You can kind of see the grass down there, which is just a really, really neat touch. Personally, I absolutely love these blocks. They are a little bit steep to craft, of course, because you do have to kill the boss. But they do act as light and pretty cool decorative particle effects and everything as well. So anyway, that's pretty much the last item you know, from the mod. Like I said, I didn't cover every single ritual on camera and every single spell effect and all that. That's pretty much what the runic tablet's for. But anyway, I'm going to end it out there. As always, if you guys enjoyed it, be sure and hit the like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already. Also, if you haven't checked out the mod, I definitely suggest it. It is a lot of fun. And it's definitely like a fresh, new take on Magic mods that I'm having a ton of fun with. Also, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know down in the comments or on any of the social media listed below, and I will definitely do my best to get back to you as soon as possible. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this and found this helpful. And until next time, as always, do take care, and I hope to see you guys then.